Today's session, we're going to talk about attitude and altitude. Okay. So, your attitude, which is your mindset or your point of view, it affects your altitude. So, the attitude that you have affects if you go high, if you go low, if you stay where you are. It affects where you are. Okay. If your perspective remains negative, narrow, and focused on what you do not have, you will feel low, you will look low, and because of that, you will make others look and feel how you feel as well, the people that are around you. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I hope you guys are keeping notes as we go through these sessions, because you can go back to them, and once you discover more things, once more things are revealed to you, it will help you in your growing process. Okay. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I want you to actually think about them and write down what comes to mind. Okay. So do you ever think about why you perceive things the way you do? Why do you have a certain attitude about certain things, certain situations, certain people? Have you ever thought about why you understand it to be how you understand it to be? Do you remember what your very first perspective of yourself was? Do you remember what your very first perspective of yourself was? And as you think about that, I want you to think about who gave you that perspective. Whatever that you thought about yourself, who gave you that perspective? Did it come from the outside? Or is this what you initially thought about who you were as a person? Okay. What do you think about the different relationships you have with people? What is your perspective on that? And who gave you that perspective? Is it what they told you you should think about them? Or is it what you actually perceive about them? What is your attitude about where you are right now? What is your mindset? What is your perspective about where you are right now at this point in your life? And I want you to think about, as you write this down, who or what gave you the perspective of where you are right now. So I want you to think about the earliest memory of your perspective of yourself. I want you to think about where you are right now. And in doing that, I want you to think about who gave you that perspective. Did you watch something on TV? Did you see something in the magazine that gave you the perspective of where you are right now? Did a friend of yours give you that perspective? Okay. So as you think about that, and you're starting to pick up that some of the perspectives about yourself, some of the perspectives about your relationships with people came from bad resources, as you start to figure out, wait a minute, that's not how I originally thought about myself. I thought I was good looking. I thought I was smart until somebody told me something else. So when you start thinking about that, I want you to mentally remove every mindset that you know for certain is not based on what is the proven truth. Every mindset, every perspective, every attitude that you've had about yourself, and you go as far back as you can. If that perspective was placed there by somebody else and it's negative, I want you to throw it away. So we're not talking about assumed truth. We're talking about proven truth. And so a lot of times we take on perspectives and attitudes from assumptions. Why, right? What we assume people will think about us. So we change it and we tweak it. Okay. But I want you to throw away every mindset that you know for certain is not based on proven truth about who you are. So we're not talking about what you assumed to be your perspective because you saw mama and daddy act like this or do things this way, right? But I want you to think about your mother and your father, your guardian, or whoever raised you. Has their way proven to be a good way and it built them up? Or have you seen their way and their perspectives, their attitudes destroy them and not allow them to live up to their full potential? If you see these habits in the people you've grown up with, then you have to think about these perspectives that I have are not good. And it's not their fault because nobody teaches us this, right? We're just now coming into a place where we're learning to accept who we are, where we're learning to be who we are, right? For some of you, as you're making that choice to throw away those old mindsets, you might feel like your soul is being pulled apart as you disagree with those attitudes that you've adopted based on your perceptions as a child, right? It's gone over into adulthood. And some of us has placed those same perceptions on our own children. And they're not right. They're not good. Okay? So the reason why you might feel there's a breaking as you're disagreeing with these mindsets is because you're actually breaking a soul tie. You're breaking a stronghold. And that stronghold may have been in your family for generations, but choosing to disagree with it, no longer how much is trying to reason in your mind to keep it. Oh, that's just how my family is. My mama did it, so I got to do it. No, you don't have to do it if it's not benefiting you. Okay? So no matter the reasons that are coming up in your mind to keep those old mindsets, you feel like a fight, like, no, I can't let go of it because it's who I am. It's not who you are. It's the wrong perspective because it's keeping you low. Okay? So some people don't know the difference between their soul and their spirit, okay? So your spirit tells your soul what to feel. Your spirit tells your spirit tells your soul what desires to have. Your soul is basically you if you were invisible. Okay? That's what your soul is. It's the same thinking, same personality, same attitudes and beliefs, same likes and dislikes. Your soul is the very essence and core of who you are if you did not have this flesh. Okay, so that's the difference between your soul and your spirit. Part of your personality is formed by that perspective you have, right? It is formed by the attitude about how you interact with the world that you live in. That's how our personalities are formed. Okay? And you cannot keep the same attitude expecting a different result. Your soul is your identity, your soul is your personality. Okay? So when you decide to disagree with the bad parts, it's going to feel like your soul is being broken, it's been pulled, because you're getting rid of those old mindsets. You get rid of all of those old attitudes that was not benefiting you. And some of us have not realized that until this very moment, until we've asked ourselves, how did I come up with the perspective of who I am? These things about me. Is it what people said about me and I just agree with it, but it's not even who I am? And I've lived this way for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? So when you break up with that, you're going to feel that pull, okay? Your spirit is what drives your soul. It's what tells your soul what to feel, right? Your spirit is your soul's connection to the invisible world. And it's your only connection to God. Why? Because God is a spirit. He's not flesh. Okay? So our spirit is our connection to God. And so that's why we need to be careful what we feed our spirit. We need to pay attention when our spirit is feeling low, because it'll drive our soul to feel low. And it'll also cause our desires to be beneath us. So when it reaches a soul level, it's deep. And it's probably going to take more than just you to help you make that decision to come out of that low place. Okay. As children of an all-powerful God, we are to set our minds on things above, right? Not below, not even at the same level, right? The level that you are right now, you're not supposed to even be looking at that level. You're supposed to set your mind on things above. You're supposed to be progressive as a human being. You're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to get better. The only thing that will decrease is our flesh, right? Our flesh will begin to sag. Our flesh will begin to do things because it's made of earth. Okay. But our spirit and our soul is supposed to elevate. It's not supposed to be brought low. Okay. So how do you know your attitude or your perspective isn't where it should be? You know this because your head is down. Your spirit is down. Your energy, your health is down. Your finances are down. Your value is down. Your faith is down, but your doubt is high. Your I can'ts and your I won'ts are more than your I cans and I wills. That's how you know that your perspective and your attitude is not where it should be. All of these low feelings and thoughts will keep you low. Some people say when you get to the bottom, it's only up from here. But not if you keep that same attitude. If you keep that same attitude, you will go lower. You will dig and create a lower bottom if you keep that same attitude. You are only lifted out of that mentality when you decide to combat every negative thought with a positive one. And you may not catch every negative thought right off the bat. If you've been in a low place for a long time, you may not catch every negative thought. But when you recognize it, you decide, I'm going to replace that. I'm going to throw this away and I'm going to replace that with a positive one. And the more you do it, the more it'll become something you do in your subconscious, right? So you don't even have to think about it. It's automatic. Okay. As long as you're only looking at the situation in front of you and you don't have the full perspective, you will only think the thoughts that keep you focused on what you see in front of you, right? You can't see the full picture when you are narrow-minded, okay? You will only think the thoughts that keep you focused on just this one bad situation, which may be misguiding you. It may be leading you to make impulsive decisions that are not good for you, because you're only focused on what you see because you're narrow-minded. You're not looking at the whole picture. Okay. Now let me tell you other low perspectives that don't appear low, right? Because they generally don't produce sadness in you, but they're still beneath you, right? Because it causes sadness in those around you. So these are other low mindsets and perspectives that you may not be aware of. Being condescending, negative independence, which is refusing help. Okay. Self-glory, self-confidence, and I'm talking about the negative kind, right? Critical and condemning thoughts, dishonor of authority, dishonoring your parents, dishonoring people that have leadership over you. Okay. Desiring to be served and not wanting to serve, desire for reputation, and the desire to control others. These are low perspectives and mindsets that you don't think is low, you don't think is beneath you, but the people around you are experiencing the results of this. Okay? Intimidation, manipulation, and domination are low places that appear high because you have people afraid or controlled by you, but they are low perspectives. Okay? If you and you know, in these sessions, we'll go a little deep sometimes, you know, and I'll throw something out there. But if you've ever dreamed of crocodiles and alligators, you may be dealing with one of these mindsets that need to be thrown away. It's beneath you. It's beneath where you should be. Even if it's giving you a temporary sense of control, those around you are not happy. They're low, they're sad, they're depressed because they've been brought low by you. Okay, so these are other low perspectives and attitudes that you pick up, that you think because it gives you a temporary sense of control that you're at a high place, but you're not. If those around you feel low by your actions, you're still at a low place. Okay? So when you quote unquote get an attitude, right? It most often means that you are only focused on your perspective. When you get an attitude about something, it most often means that you're only focused on your perspective. When you do this, it can be a sign that you are responding at an immature level of communication. And I know in minority cultures, we think it's cute or we think it's a sign of authority, but it's not. It's immaturity and it's negative entitlement. We are behaving lower than where we should be, and you won't go higher until you see past your own perspective. Okay? That's how you communicate effectively. You don't just look at how you think about it, how you view it. You look at other people's perspective. Okay? When we only want to see our way, that keeps us narrow-minded, right? Because in order to make sound judgment, you have to see all the ways. In order to be better than you are, it starts with you thinking better. Okay? And thinking better doesn't mean that you're the only one right. It means that if this thing is better, it's better because I've truly considered every other possibility and every other perspective. That's what makes it better. You can't just say something is great because you thought of it. It's great when your peers says it's great as well, right? And that's what causes a lot of attitudes, because you don't agree with me and I want it my way and I don't care about your way. That's what causes a lot of attitudes. Okay? But that's not benefiting you. That's not getting you higher. Okay? All of those emotional outbursts that seem to be out of our control, those are called tantrums. And yes, adults have tantrums, okay? Some tantrums are verbal or physical, and others are silent. It is a burst of unmanaged emotions, whether it is hidden or not. Okay? If they're hidden, they're not verbalized. Trust me, they're doing more physical damage. When you release what you feel, it doesn't sit and fester in your bowels and in your heart and in your muscles. Okay, if you are experiencing issues only in these areas that are unexplainable by a doctor, they run bunches of tests, but they can't explain why you have these bowel issues, why you have these muscle aches, why you're having these migraines and these headaches, why you're having these heart issues. If they can't explain it, you probably have unprocessed frustrations, which cause unmanaged emotions, which results in those inner tantrums. Your body is responding to what's going on in your mind and in your emotions. Okay, tantrums are a sign of frustration. And we mostly relate that to toddlers, right? We say the terrible twos, but some of us going through some terrible 20s and some terrible 50s and some terrible 30s.
Yes. Amen.
Right?
I am experiencing some terrible 40s. Amen.
Right? So this is from frustration.
Oh.
Okay? It is a sign of frustration. As an adult that experiences frustrations, you exhibit this because you may lack maturity in that particular area of your emotions. Or it's possible that you lack independence in that area. Or the ability to respond because of someone else's perceived power over you. Okay? Some tantrums are a response from self-centered people that are uninterested in anyone else's needs except their own. Other times, it's the frustration of trying to remain in control of yourself. My sister, y'all. Sometimes it is the frustration of trying to remain in control without being given the tools to adjust your attitude to the situation. So you're trying to be in control of your emotions, but you haven't been taught how. You don't know the tools. You don't know that you can even control these things.
Yeah, this is all your fault, Elvana. I haven't been taught how.
And so, and I'll give you an example of this. I have two examples. One thing my husband told me, and I was in my 30s, I believe. He told me, you can control what you feel. But I've always thought, no, it's everybody else's fault. It's not everybody else's fault. And once I realized I could control if I got angry, if I got sad or not, I was like, this is a game changer, right? You can control it if you learn how to process what you feel correctly. Another example of this type of thing, my mom always said, people that use profanity are ignorant, and that's a nice word. And so,
How dare you?
in my mind, if I chose to use it, I was choosing to be ignorant. But then in my mind, I was thinking, oh, there's some people who they don't know they're being ignorant because I'm choosing to be, because I don't feel like using the words that could explain my feelings, right? So, and so that's another thing. When those are the things we have to think about. And that's a good rule of thumb as well. You know, if you're having to use something other than plain English, why? Okay. So
They're
this
sentence enhancers.
So this can happen because you may have had poor social referencing from the atmosphere you've grown up in. So you tend to mimic those poor social behaviors you've seen as a child, right? You learn to regulate your behavior based on those attitudes that you've experienced with people, and it goes over into adulthood. Negative emotions and feelings will stagnate your maturity, and it also affects how you communicate as an adult. But now we don't have that excuse, because now we know why we had that attitude, and now we know how to change that attitude. We know now to get rid of those poor mindsets and perspectives, right? And some of us need to just throw all of it away, right? And just start completely over, start fresh with a fresh mindset, allow God to come in and tell us how we should feel about this and what we should do about this, how we should respond to this, right? Because you have some people who have grown up in atmospheres that was completely wrong. And not that that was the intention of those they grew up around, but they didn't know. Okay. And so they just pass it down. So if you have children and grandchildren and people that are being raised around you, be mindful of what mindsets and what perspectives that you are giving them, because they will mimic it. Okay. As an adult, some stuff that we know was taught wrong to us, but we still perceive it the same way, that's immaturity on our part. Okay. We can't expect to grow if we're not going to throw the junk away. We can't expect to be elevated if we're choosing to stay and think low. Okay. I'm telling you, if nobody else will tell you, throw the old mindsets away. If they're not working for you, if they're not causing you to be elevated, if it's not causing you to think better of yourself, throw it away. Okay. So we are adjusting our attitudes this week. So for the next 7 days, we are thinking about our perspectives, where they come from, if they're benefiting us, if they're causing us to be elevated, if they're causing us to remain low, if they're causing us to even remain on the same level. We don't even want to stay on the same level that we are this week. By next week, we want to have grown. And so we have to do some behavioral management, right? This is because our personality was not developed properly due to certain circumstances in our childhood, due to certain traumas that we've experienced, due to lack of positive guidance or positive influence, due to arrested moral development or spiritual development, right? We have to adjust our attitude to grow, to learn how to respond to life as we see it in a way that causes us to progress. Okay, we are progressive as human beings. We should be progressing. So we don't need to look low. We don't need to think low. We have to stop lowballing ourselves. Stop minimizing yourself. Look up. It's only up from here. Throw away those old mindsets that is not benefiting you in the long run. Stop letting those frustrations affect your body and learn how to communicate your feelings. Ask God to send you positive examples, good social references. Ask Him to send you positive friends. Leave those low people alone unless they're your assignment. Okay? Because you've been mimicking them and their dysfunction, so you can't see your dysfunction. And you end up being one big happy dysfunctional family stuck in the same cycle generation after generation. You have to be the cycle breaker. You're not going to deal with what your parents have dealt with. You're not going to deal with what you've dealt with before today. You're going to look up. You're going to adjust your attitude so that you can adjust your altitude. Your attitude affects your altitude. So think about the perspectives you have. Think about the mindsets you have. Okay? Think about these things, where they come from. If they came from an unreliable source that is not benefiting you, throw it away. Now, like, you don't have to do it later. You can make a choice to throw it away now and only think up. Think low. I'm sorry. Stop thinking low of yourself. Stop underestimating yourself. Sometimes people have perspectives about you because you think low of yourself. They didn't originally feel that way. They felt you were great. But because of someone else's perspective of you before, you're presenting that to other people that think you're great. Okay? So in order to get out of that mindset, it starts with you canceling out those low thoughts, choosing a higher thought, choosing a better perspective, choosing positivity. And that's the way you will grow. If you're having issues with your mindset, you guys, I do have podcasts. If you go on my website, www.edwinabayou.com, I have podcasts. There's other teachings that are a little deeper than this. These are just little 30-minute weekly sessions. It's geared toward growth. But if you have other questions or other things you need to listen to, I have books as well on the website. You can email me at replenish3125@gmail. If you have personal questions that you don't want to say, or comments that you don't want to say out loud, and we can discuss it on there as well. Again, that email is replenish3125@gmail.com. We should process what we're feeling before we respond. And sometimes it's going to take you a little bit longer. So, you know, and for me, it just, sometimes I have a blank look because I'm processing, because what I want to say, I know I shouldn't say, right? So I'm processing and I'm deciding how I'm going to respond. And that's how you move to maturity in managing your emotions and making sure that, because it can overwhelm your brain. Right? If you have a bunch of things and you can't process it all, it can overwhelm your brain now a tantrum is like a kind of a lower level, but to the point where you snap, right? And that's very dangerous because some people don't come back from that. Okay? And so you want to learn to manage it while it's kind of small, you know, versus getting to the point where you snap or you black out and things like that, because that can be dangerous for you and whoever is involved. So don't let it grow past the tantrums. Make sure you're processing what you're feeling, processing your frustrations, and not letting them build. Getting to someone to vent, you know, someone that you can just let it all out. And so that's our time for today. I will see you guys next week at 3 p.m. Later.